What if I told you that farming jungling has always been good? In that no matter what meta you're in, you can always use these principles to carry win and climb with whatever jungler you choose to play. That's because there's a step-by-step principle which really is the fundamental of all jungling, and farming junglers unlock that. Look, let's start the first clears here. We're going to show you exactly what you need to do, but if you play Lee Sins, if you play even, yes, Xin Zhao's like in this game, if you play anything in this game, these principles will apply to you, but farming junglers really do unlock a certain level of jungle goodness that make them almost meta immune. Now you're thinking about the spam ganking metas, you know, with Silas and things like that. I'm talking about since they made the spawn time as 2:15 back in 11.4. But if you're not convinced, let me convince you. Hecarim starts on the top side, he's gonna full clear all the way down, and he's gonna finish his clear by like 3:17 or so. Most of you who play full clearing junglers will get this done, but also any ganking junglers also full clearing now because that's just the way the game is. What you have as a benefit here as a farming jungler is a gap between your finish and the scuttle crab that you can fill with activities like ganking mid lane. Always look for that angle, avoid getting detected by unnecessary wards, and if you can't stick with the target to burn his flash, do so. Don't overcommit. Sometimes in these ganks you might not even get the flash, but simply burning health and burning mana and burning gap closes allows your mid laner to win and create prio. In the meantime though, the more slow clearing jungler that might be a ganker like the Xin Zhao in this game, like a Rek'Sai, things like that, will gank your bot lane, especially if they are pushed up or in a neutral position. Now you look at it as a farming jungler and you think, right, should I rotate down to that situation and actually help? Can I help? Is it worth it? Should I simply ditch everything here, including the scuttle, go top scuttle, maybe gank top lane, and then, you know, back to my Raptors and Krugs? That is a standard clear if you started Raptors, not if you started red, of course. In that case, you would loop around for Krugs into Raptors, depending on the timers. Or the third option here is, all right, look, he's down there, he's busy, he's distracted with the corpses of my ADC, therefore I will steal scuttle, go back to base, buy, and head straight to the top side. I always like this idea because if you have a little bit of gold, even as a farming jungler, while you might not be necessarily weak, that's a misconception, you do tend to have a more scaling component. So having good itemization here to go to the top side, and one, full clear all the way down if you choose, but two, hey, top lane is gankable, let me get there quickly before the enemy ganking jungler shows up and try and get that done. Many farming junglers have this mythology that, hey, I'm really weak, I can't take these fights with the ganking jungler. Of course you can. Not all of them, but most of them have an ability to actually dish out a kill here and actually turn the fight against the ganking jungler and screw them. But for more in-depth on this kind of stuff, we have Virkayu.gg. Not only do I have a free jungle improvement resource, I also have a dedicated program with jungle video courses, jungle coaching, coaching classes, a jungle VOD library. We already have a lot of community VOD reviews and coaching classes for Season 15, sharing all the tips and tricks to reach new peaks in this season. All the fundamentals you need for right now are available in a ridiculous amount of hours for content tailored for your MMR so you can climb to reach your peak rank as fast as possible. So to hit your peak rank in Season 15 and jungle diff every game you play, head to the link in the description below or to Virkayu.gg. Because they are forced to make these plays. They have to have some sort of tempo control on the map over you. If you're ganking more than them, you're going to be farming more than them. What exactly do they bring? And that's the eternal pain that you want to throw in their face. Now what this means, even if you got kills also, is that you can have full sequence down again. Remember, the farming jungler tenets, the rules are full clear first. Before you full clear again, look for ganks, full clear again, get a scuttle, get 6, and then play around your ultimate. You don't want to compromise your sequencing, you don't want to delay it, you want to maximize the experience, but you do want to gank before and after if lanes give you that opportunity. You also want to rotate to situations where you can clean up fights and ganks if there's an 80% to 90% chance you can get something. If not, and you can't save them and you won't get kills and assists, don't rotate. Stick to your guns. Does require discipline and obviously ignoring your teammates, they will spam ping you. But here now you see the Xin Zhao, he comes out of base after respawn, he takes the top quadrant, he holds mid lane. Now he's gonna be like, well, you know, we're ganking, we're fisting, I actually have a small gap in tempo here where I can cut into the grubs while he's on the other side. Now he thinks that's a good thing. It's not a good thing, especially if you are something like a Hecarim or any sort of scaling farming jungler, because you can now cut down, see he's done that, and steal his respawned Raptors and Krugs. That's something you can do. Then you can gank bottom lane, or you can just do the dragon and offset his objective take. There's no real gap in tempo from the Xin Zhao because you, sir, control it. And because he died, he is in tempo debt. That's right, he's lost time, you have lost none. You are winning. Now there will be games where you aren't able to match the Xin Zhao and he's able to, of course, get those ganks off, but very rarely should you be in a situation where you're full clearing with nothing to do unless you have full losing lanes, and sometimes that's just a different scenario, doesn't matter who you are. Most of the time, you will have an opportunity to gank bot, top, and mid before level 6. It's about F-king and looking for that opportunity. And because we did that and we know he took the grubs categorically, we know the Raptors are available. So we go steal them. But we don't greed for Krugs. Why? Because Xin Zhao at this point could have taken them and just gone back to base. There's nothing else for him on the top side. But what he also could do is maybe look to gank mid lane, thinking Hecarim has gone back to base. But you're the better jungler. You went counter jungling because you're smarter than him, and you counter gank it with the 6 he doesn't have. Boom. Game's in your control already. So if you're playing a Karthus, a Lilia, even a good old-fashioned Rengar assassin game, you can play like this. That's why it's not necessarily, hey, only quote-unquote farming junglers. It's a farming jungler style that you can apply to most champions that you can play in the jungle. Now Hecarim's really sitting in a great position. He can go back to base. He's going to have a huge buy. By big buy, I mean a big old-fashioned eclipse. Here's the thing though, because you've not got experience and itemization advantage, but also full tempo control, the Xin Zhao is gonna try something more aggressive. The ganking jungler is gonna say, hey, this isn't going my way. I'm not gonna win this game by farming. I gotta look for activity to do that gets me some gold here and deny the enemy jungler some stuff. That's his thought process. So while you carry on your full clearing again, Krugs, Red, Raptors, yeah, you're thinking, what is the guy gonna do? Obviously here we see him. Goes mid lane, walks across a ward, catches a Sona taking a nap. He's gonna sprint on all the way down to the bottom turret and do a dive in your bot lane. That's the activity I was talking about, right? When an aggressive ganking jungler does this sort of stuff, hey, when a farming jungler does this sort of stuff, you look at it and go, well, I can't rotate up there to save them. That's just not a thing I can do at this point. I'm not willing to give up all of my experience juice. Therefore, I'll just do my quadrant. Now, because your Gromp and Wolves have spawned up here, your Blue has spawned up here, you kind of want to protect this quadrant, but should this look really doomed, like mid lane is in your face, there's 4 people in your jungle, you can't go there. That's where you cut back and you counter jungle his top side and you dive top lane. That's option 1. Option 2, if you're this strong, is to punish his over-aggression, especially if he doesn't have the numbers to support you and he's just thinking, haha, farming jungle is gonna counter jungle. No, I don't have to do that now because I played it so well early, I will just destroy you. Which we do. And then after that, you can go and steal some more Raptors. You can go and steal his red. But again, you are now doing exactly what he did. You gotta watch lanes, you gotta watch the state of the map, you gotta remember what the point of the game is, and you too could be punished for an overcommitment of stealing a buff. Ideally, we don't respond with this kind of death. Ideally, we just get in and get out. If you have time to do your bottom quadrant and base for grubs, you do. Otherwise, you can just take 1 or 2 camps and base for the grubs regardless. You've got a lot of decisions here, but this is where you wanna be. Hey, I got 3 to 4 great decisions I can make, and the enemy jungler will have significantly less. That's what we're trying to do here. But you're not invincible. The goal is to have a lead and to scale. You're still in the game zone, the area of the game, where most aggressive junglers will typically still be able to beat you up, especially if they have numbers prior in certain compositions. You've got to play the whole mid to late game scaling thing quite well. And while this video isn't going to show you giving up certain things like grubs and dragons, the Hecarim here leaves the base knowing Xin Zhao is going to be topside after his death. They go for the fist in the fight. He's able to snack them. He counter ganks the topside. Look at the kill, the beautiful prancing horse. Well, that's a bit of an abomination. I apologize to the Ferrari fans. And then you might still have a dive on the top side that you can look for. So while this might not play out in a perfect way, no game will. It's always about the principles that carry the foundation of your game plan. And here we set up everything absolutely perfectly. You know, outside of actively dying on a red invade, but you've got to have fun with yourself as well. And by saying that, I might invite different sponsor emails. In the meantime, Hecarim wants to do something for himself as well, and that is, well, I've got the grubs that killed everybody. I'm a sequence all the way down. Again, learn to look at the state of the lanes and say, hey, that lane is doomed. I want nothing to do with it. I'm going to go to base. But obviously, if you see a gank and something you can rotate to and a fight you can impact after you're clear especially, this is where we want to use our juice. But the most important part that I need to reiterate is even though you are scaling harder, you have a bigger lead, you are the jungle div, you are not immortal yet. You haven't reached that moment. And yes, I understand that the Hecarim got hooked and he signed his own death warrant, but you know, the principle again. Here when he respawns though, and that's why I love this, we have a concept I don't really talk about quite a lot. And that is reversing the map. As a farming jungler, you typically have a direction. I start top, I path down. I do everything, I start top, I path down. Same thing all the time. Maybe you go bottom to top, it doesn't matter, it depends on your preference, like many things in life. However, here now, we decide instead of going to the top side to clear down, we're gonna go to the bottom side and start to get a little bit aggressive. Why? Because you have such a big gap in your spawn timers now because you clear so quickly, this mid-game spike, especially for Hecarims, and now it's about objectives, pushing the map forward and getting those tier 1s killed. No turrets have fallen yet. Why? Because there's a dragon on the map. There are objectives on the map. We want to actually, you know, secure things that allow us to win. Well, he took the dragon while we were pathing down, so we'll just kill him for that. And then we can look now to translate that pressure from bot to mid to top. Now we want to impact the whole map all the way across, showcase our lead, and look for those mega fights. Here, of course, we get something top lane. This is where, as a farming jungler, someone who can clear things quickly, push the waves up, try and get those turrets, get the RNG Scuttle Crab, and now your camps will have respawned, so you in theory can sequence all the way down. You could simply go back to base and buy that second item before you look for a fight, which may have been the recommended thing to do instead of what the Hecarim does do, which is overreach again. And now you're saying, but why are you showing a challenger farming jungler do this? Because you do that, and I do that, and we all do this. These mistakes, his deaths, are things that can cause you to lose games. It's not as much of a problem because he did everything else perfectly, right? But if he didn't do everything else perfectly and he wasn't in this position, these deaths would cost him LP. It's better there for him to take the top quadrant, basing a cleaver, and now look for a mega fight. Fortunately, he dies, he's able to get a few assists, that's great. Now we have 2 items. What he does here, and pay attention to this is the most important part about carrying as a farming jungler. He leaves base, he goes to wolves, hedges and alls and waffles a little bit about the grump, and then cuts back to the top side. What you want to actually do is path in the direction you want to end up at. What's the next objective that we want to secure? And how can we get there while farming at the same time? Most farming junglers stop farming here, they start rotating to the objectives and the fights, but they don't keep their recon. So if they lose the fight, they get starved out and you lose. So go grump, wolves, path to the top side, observe when you need to rotate, and farm in the meantime. Obviously we have Herald, we have Atakan, all these things are going to be happening on that side of the map. So obviously we're going to want to go fight it. But as a farming jungler, what I can show you here in another clip as we cut away, if your team actively die while you're resetting there, yeah, it's your fault that you died mid lane and you gave them the opportunity to fight and die. You're gonna have to give up the Herald. You're gonna have to give up the Atakan. No stress, because you would be in Hecarim's situation here. You can do the grub, you can do the wolves, and you can cut back and simply split push. Catch that bottom wave and shove it. Get that tier 1, especially if no one is near you and you are strong enough to win any fight. At 2 items at this point, you should be. The goal as always by 14 is to be around 6,000 gold. If you're at 7,000, you're just rolling over people, so use that power. As we jump back here, you see the Hecarim ends up where he wants to be, and now we just have an all-out fight. And you can see the difference with his 2 items. He's able to go in and out. He's able to play around his team. His team are playing around him. It's just not a one game. This game is very equal, and he is the one controlling the entire tempo flow. So if he messes up, it will cost his team the victory. And the next step in this step-by-step farming jungle guide is what? Well, if you win the fight, get the objective, take all of their camps, shove the waves up. Those 3 things are never done in a lot of MMR ranges. You win a fight, you take the objective, you steal their camps, you push the waves up. Pushing the waves up, especially as someone who full clears and farms very quickly, allows you now to reset and buy, well, they have to spend a whole bunch of time re-pushing the waves into an advantageous position, especially if the next thing coming up is a dragon. The Hecarim finishes his Krugs to buy and maximize his base so he can go directly to the bottom side to contest and fight and see what's up. Obviously, you can do your camps if you have to give it up. If there's fog of war, don't go to face check it. Just control your camps, let the situation evolve, don't get too antsy, don't get too impatient. Wait for the enemy to overcommit. They're worried, right? They need to stress this dragon. You don't. This isn't Soul Point. I don't care. If I have to give it up, I will. I'm strong and I can take my camps, push waves, go somewhere else. Let the aggressive team, let the losing team make the mistake, because even though they have control of that environment, the vision control and everything necessary to win, they're still nervous about you. You're in their head, and you should be, because look what happens. You destroy them, you ruin them, you make them miserable, they commit a TP. It doesn't matter. And now you get the dragon. And how do you close out or force FFs in these situations? You do the same 3 things I mentioned at the last fight. Win a fight, get in their jungle, take objectives, and push waves. Hecarim comes out of base, takes his red, takes some camps, pushes waves, falls back to the objective in this particular case, outside in rule, push the map out for your favor, get the vision, then fall back to the Atakan. You can see if they're coming to contest, and you can turn and kill them all, because that's what you should do. Atakan is not something you want to do blindly and then die on. It's not worth it. If you have to give it up, give it up. You won't lose the game just because you gave away Atakan. And really, those 3 principles, I guess we can add the 4th path to where you want to be, is the ultimate way for farming jungler to end. Because you see, he will repeat this process. He will then fall back to his camps at the end. If the map is dark and full of terrors, he'll sequence and wait to see something develop, make a move. If he has full control of everything, he gets in their jungle, he pushes up waves, he hits turrets. Make sure to hit that non-zero turret damage, please. And it's really a case of repeating that process over and over again, but with this one very important thing. Do not go split pushing and ditch your team when you are this fed and have this high KP. Please path to where you want to be, path around what the enemy is doing to beat their asses, and then actually push into turrets. It's the biggest problem with farming junglers sometimes rotate to fights, pull back to camps. Why? Do the Baron, push the map, hit the turrets. Keep this up 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 the whole time that you are trying to end. You must do this. You must get it done. because the whole point of jungling in the first place is to get to the point where you control everything in this mid to late game phase. As always, sometimes that changes based upon your MMR, so click the video on your screen now to watch how to do this in your MMR to reach your dreams.